Hello, everyone. As we are here, we know that we are going to talk about failure, importance of failure. Everybody in their life, they fall sometime. They have faced failure in their life. But how is it important? Do we know? We have so many things in our mind and we keep thinking and just we are talking about it. So let's have our conversation today with our wonderful guest. Let me introduce her first. So her name is Maryam Navsa, and she is doctor by profession. She is all the way from Cape Town, South Africa. She has her special interest in family medicines. Currently in practice and have been for the past 44 years. She has been taught family medicines to postgrads at University of Cape Town for 20 years and was retired in 2019. What a vast experience she's having. She is now life coach with special interest in spirituality. Even she is author of 2 books. One is Overcoming Shame, Blame, and Pain. Second is Unchained, Soaring on the Wings of Serenity. So, without wasting any time, let me welcome her and we can listen more about her from her itself. So, hello, Maryam.
Hi, Minu. Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me on your show. It's really a privilege to be able to come and share and discuss a topic that is so important and that perhaps not enough has been said about. So thank you.
So can you a little bit introduce yourself, like you can input light on your life or your journey a little bit?
Well, I suppose in light of the topic, I could probably have a lot to talk about because I have been faced failure, and I'm going to put that word in inverted commas, and we'll talk more about that now, in many aspects of my life, particularly medicine. We don't have all the answers in medicine, so to err or fail is almost inherent in the practice of medicine. But very, very difficult and painful, especially if you're a young, inexperienced doctor, because every time you've missed a diagnosis or a patient dies and you start taking things personally and see yourself as a failure, and there are many opportunities where you just say, you know what, I'm not a good doctor. I shouldn't be doing this. I should be doing something else. But you persist. You keep on despite the pain. You learn, you grow, and you move on. And then now, after 44 years of many failures, I'm feeling so much more comfortable, and I've gained quite a bit, and we'll talk more about the actual values of experiencing this. So yes, it's not a pleasant journey. It is unpleasant, as valuable as it is. And then, of course, there's failures in other aspects of your life. For me, it was huge in relationships. I had to go through the pain of unfulfilling relationships. I go through the pain I was causing to others because of my failure in terms of my relationship. So yes, there has been many. So I suppose the question starts off with, what is failure? And I imagine it's different things for different people. But the issue I have, and I'd like to actually start off with that, is the actual term failure. That's why I keep on putting it in inverted commas, because on the one hand, we're talking about, oh, it's important, it's valuable. We have coaches and psychologists talking about its value. But on the other hand, that's the positive part. But on the other hand, the word has got so many negative connotations associated with it. Extremely negative. It's even loaded with judgment. And that for me is the issue is that should we in fact be even using that word, or should we be using other words when people are faced with failure because of the heavy connotation? So if you look at the way kids are schooled at school, and teachers, when you haven't met a certain set of standards, etc., you're almost labeled. People will then identify themselves as being failures. So children hear the word and there's that fear, because there's almost the expectation, and especially in medicine, I must tell you, certainly in my time, when you failed, your colleagues did not look very well upon you. These are patients, these are lives, you dare not fail. So you can imagine the kind of emotions and thoughts that come up with that. So on the one side, there's all this negativity, and maybe we should start describing the failure differently rather than saying you failed, because of those heavy negative connotations and judgment. And then the other problem is, of course, that society, focuses on success, the fame, the glory, the glamour. That's where the focus is of the success, with much less focus on the trials and tribulations that led to that success. So I imagine that really is where a huge issue and the problem lies in terms of failure. It's the way we perceive it, the way we talk about it, the focus being on success rather than on the trial and tribulation. So it's a huge problem. And if I could get through this talk without using the word failure, I feel very pleased with myself. So it's about not achieving what it is you set out to achieve first time around, rather than I failed. That A and the F that children get on the reports. I mean, it's huge. We all know that. I think a lot of us have been through that, and our teachers and our parents' expectations of us. And of course, it arises in a lot of situations. I grew up with a lot of criticism, which is thought to be the right thing. But, when you constantly criticize, that sense of failure develops and becomes almost a part of you. You start having this fear of failing, which is something I faced for a long time throughout my life.
So how do you define failure in your terms, what is failure? Because as you said, that failure definition is different for everybody.
So
what about you?
Yeah. So it's essentially an opportunity to do something better than the way I did it before. It really is. It's an opportunity to learn and grow, because I have learned that even through my life experience, I would not be here where I am if it had not been for the failures in relationship, the perceived failures, not achieving the things immediately based on the expectation of myself and of others. They were necessary. They were important. But it isn't the not achieving that's the important part that leads to success, because that's what we must get to. You'll often see these quotes where people say, failure is a stepping stone to success. But in essence, it actually isn't the failure. It's the retrying. It's, I did not achieve it, and when I retry, do it again. Practice. We know about practice that leads to success. That's what leads to the success. Because I could fail and give up. But when I do not achieve what I set out to achieve, and I go and try again, look at it differently, experiment, see what works, what doesn't, and I do it again, and each time I'm learning something differently and new, and I go and try it again and try again. Those are the steps. The trying again, the practice over and over that actually leads to the success. It's not the failure itself that leads to the success. It's the experience of not achieving and the trying again. And that's really, in essence, what it is about, the not giving up.
Yeah. So, it means that when you stop trying, and you give up, then you are failed, right?
Exactly. And that's what people would say. That you could probably call failure, if you want to use the term failure. It's like living as well too. You know, our entire life experience is designed towards growth and improvement. That's the basis of our entire existence. It's about growth and improvement. But now you could go and choose to live so cautiously, so carefully, to the point that you're not even living at all. And that, I suppose, by default, as J.K. Rowling would put it, one could then term failure, because what's your purpose for being here if you want to go and be so safe, not take risks, and think then, I'm living a very comfortable, cool life? You're not living, period. It's an existence that is kind of empty and meaningless.
Right, absolutely right. Because failure is like we are taking risk. We have taken a step towards it, something else. If we are not doing anything, then there is no point of having success or failure. If we are not doing
it, there's no point to your existence almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the question, of course, always is, so why, how does it bring value? How does it actually bring value when we set out to achieve something and we don't achieve it? So I mentioned the word experience. We all recognize and understand the importance of experience. You know, everybody is looking for someone who is experienced. How do they get that experience? So you get experience by having more and more practice in something that you want to be experienced in. I have to practice medicine over and over again, particular ways, before I become experienced. But I won't go and do it over again if I go and get it right the first time. Why would I? So did I make the first attempt? Got it all right, perfect, done. How am I going to get experience? Where's the practice going to come from? Precisely. So that's one of the values of failure, of not achieving it first time or second, third, is that I need to go and do it again. I need to go and find different ways, understand why this didn't work and why this is working. I've got to do it over and over again. And when I do it over and over again, I practice more, I become experienced. And it's the same thing with life. Failed relationships, it has this impact on me, it has impact on the people I'm having a relationship with. It's not working. I become more and aware of the fact that there's something not right in my life. There's something missing in my life. I need to change it. And I try different ways, changing myself, changing my thoughts, changing things I do, until I become experienced in life. And that's the beautiful thing, is it gives you this life experience where you change internally, you become more compassionate, you become more reflective, you start reflecting on the way you think, the things you do, how you impact on other people, and you change that for the better. So life becomes then more meaningful for you, becomes so much more deeper and fulfilling than just beyond the superficial things that we do. And that, I mean, how do you place a value on that? But that's what failure does. It gets us to have better experience in the various things we do in life, in our personal growth and development, our relationships, the life, our understand. And you never stop searching for a better understanding of life. What is this existence all about? You know, you start reflecting on, why does this work and that doesn't work? Why did this happen in my life and that didn't? So one of the biggest values that we get through this process of what we refer to as failure is the experience and the growth that comes with it. And then, of course, knowledge. We're talking about first-hand knowledge here, not book knowledge. And yeah, I really have to, okay, so we're all familiar with Thomas Edison and his discovery of the electric light bulb. But what I loved is when one of the reporters asked him, so I think he'd reached now the 9,000 times attempt at getting this electrical light bulb in. So one of the reporters said to him, you know, when are you going to give up on this? I mean, isn't it about time to say that you failed? And the man said, why would I say I failed when I discovered 9,000 ways in which the light bulb does not work? I discovered and learned and gained knowledge 9,000 ways this thing doesn't work. So that was the knowledge, and it's you don't get that out of books. So the knowledge we get from doing things over, because every time you do it over, you learn. You've learned something new that you didn't know before. So there's all that knowledge you gained. What about resilience? I mean, you know, you have to persevere. That's what failure does, is you've got to persevere. And when we persevere, we become strong. You know, our resilience just grows, and you need that kind of resilience. Remember, when we set out to achieve anything, it's not a radical sprint you're taking. It's a marathon. But when you go through a marathon runners will tell you about the perseverance it needs to take and the resilience they grow with each race that they take. That's what it's like when we set out to achieve anything in life. Our resilience grows. And with that resilience, you are stronger for the next attempt. And then you're again stronger for the next attempt. It just builds on that all the time. Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, one can't just stop talking about the importance of having these, of not achieving things first time, second, third, fourth time around, because every time you go and try again and you practice again, the knowledge, the experience, the resilience you develop with it. And then there's the whole issue of value. You know, if you choose to do something that is going to be of value to you and to others, your chances of succeeding at that is so much greater when you are going to be doing something that really is not adding value to anything or to anyone. And that's what it teaches you, because now you've got to start examining, so why am I doing this? What is it that I really and truly hope to achieve with this? Who is it going to serve? And when it's value driven and it's going to serve others, I mean, that is what keeps you going at it. And you'll do it again. Not working, and you're going to do it again, because you know at the end of the day, and it's just inherent in the nature of our existence and the way the universe runs things. When we chase for things that are going to serve and be of value, you can't but otherwise succeed.
So if we are talking about experience, I was getting a thought, like when you were sharing experience, how people fail and then they learn and they again do it and again do it and again do it. I was just imagining how a baby learns walking.
Absolutely.
They fall down, again they get up, and they fall down, again they get up, and they never cry upon that they have failed walking, right? So that's how we should be, like a child, and do it.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is, if you ask the mother, the mother's not going to tell you, oh my God, my child is never going to walk, my child has failed. The mother knows. The mother knows that the child has to stumble and fall, knows it, accepts it, embraces it with joy, because she knows at the end of the day, I'm going to have this little one running all over the show. And if we could embrace that same joy, understanding, we'd have the same experience that mother is having as a child learns to walk. You're absolutely right.
So how, I mean, in your sense, what is stopping stones for people to learn from failures or to understand failure, important failure?
So, you know, I think the first of all is those expectations. The expectation that I must get it right first time, second time, you know. If you start having those expectations, and if others place those kind of expectations on you, you're already setting yourself up not to succeed, because that is not the nature of life. That's not the nature of success. And people only have to go and look at the success, the successful people and the things they had to go through to achieve that kind of success. That it's not comfortable, accept that. It's necessary, important, but yes, most of us will tell you while you're busy experiencing that unsuccessful attempts, it's not nice. It's painful. Your ego gets hit. It's uncomfortable. You start feeling fearful. You start feeling uncertain. You have all these things. Of course, it's not pleasant. So, the expectations of, and also be always wary of what you are doing. Is what you're doing someone else's agenda, or is it your own? Because when you're trying to live and create the success others want, and it's not what you want, you set up not to succeed. It's not yours. It's not part of your agenda. It's not what you want for your life. It's what somebody. A lot of people aren't even aware of the fact that they're trying to do things that other people expect them to do. And I often see this in students. My teacher said I am brilliant enough. I should be a doctor or lawyer. Deep in my heart, I don't want to be a doctor or lawyer, but my teacher said I should be. My parents said I should be. Community said I should be. So I go ahead and again, if it's deep in your heart, it's not you. It's not who you are and what you want to be. We can well imagine what's going to happen. So there is, of course, that. The other thing is, be wary of the people that you surround yourself with. Whenever we attempting to do anything, all of us, we need encouragement and support. We need people who believe in us. But you will get those people who are going to say to you, yeah, I told you shouldn't have done that. Didn't I warn you beforehand that you're not going to get it right? What do you think you're going to feel? You're going to think, oh, well, they were right. I shouldn't do it. I shouldn't even try again. And of course, with regards to the belief, you are the first person that needs to believe in you. Yes, it's very important for others to help us, support us, encourage, believe in us. But we also need to have that kind of belief in ourselves, belief in our ability, and belief in what it is we truly want. When you're setting out to do something, that why are you doing it? That's the biggest motivation to get you to retry and do it again and again. But you've got to have absolute clarity on all of that and what it is. And of course, we've spoken about embracing the fact, understand failure and what it is and how important it is. The other thing is, when we embrace challenge and we change our attitude towards challenge, when we see challenge, the more you're open to a challenge, more you see it as an opportunity to grow, the less likely and less painful the failure experience will be for you. And of course, the next thing we do when things haven't worked out is, like I mentioned before, is to examine your goal, the outcomes that you want to achieve. Whose are those? Why are you doing it? And then is to go back to the drawing board and say, fine, let me go and journaling, all of this is so important. I mean, there's something so beautiful about when you put things down to paper. It looks so much clearer. It looks less daunting than it is when it's just in your head, and less painful and ugly. You put it on paper, you go back to the drawing board and you say, okay, so what should I do differently? How should I plan differently? When we're setting out to achieve a particular outcome, we must have a very specific, focused, structured, measurable, clear plan as to what we're going to do. Break down into little bits that are a little bit more achievable. Don't set these huge, unrealistic goals. And if the goal does look big, break it down into little chunks. You just start with that little small piece first. It's easier then to do things and to deal with the fact that, okay, I need to redo this and rethink this. So yeah, those are some of the things that one can think of in terms of doing, but is understand it. understand it for what it is, the value it produces, and also be aware of the connotations that go with it. Don't make them yours. Don't make failure your identity. Even if someone has labeled you that, it's not your identity. It's not who you are. So yeah, it's embracing all of those and understanding society's attitudes, thoughts, the connotations they put in the word. And it's difficult for children. They're still very vulnerable, they're growing, and when teachers and parents label, so the lesson is for the teachers, for the parents, the caregivers. How do you approach a child when the child is not getting things right the first time around?
That was my next question, because as we were talking about how child is starting walking, like he falls down, then he get up and do it, because he is very clear in mind. He doesn't have any kind of expectation, jealousy, no kind of hard feeling, nothing he has. So he just do it whatever he has to do, whether it's spelling or he doesn't know anything about it. So that's our responsibility, parents' responsibility, teachers' responsibility, or relatives' responsibility to teach those kind of thoughts to the child while he's growing up, because that's what we are inputting in their mind, that okay, if you are not doing this, you are failed. So that's
put joy around it. Put joy. So when they haven't succeeded in doing something, let's make it a joyful event, an event for curiosity, discovery. Bring pleasure and joy around the event of not having achieved, rather than, oh my God, you didn't get it right. What were you thinking? How could you do that? Why do we have that when we could say, oh, this is quite exciting. So let's have a look at this. Let's get curious about why this didn't happen and how this could happen. Why don't we just change it? But of course, it's the teachers and the parents and society themselves that have been raised with this. Oh, sorry, I must just get rid of this. Oh, come on, let's go. That we were raised that way. Parents were highly critical, who set standards, and children don't achieve those particular standards. I mean, I have young people in my rooms who are so distressed because I got a B. I didn't get an A. I mean, I'm feeling so miserable. How could I have not gotten the A? How do we get children to those places where they start feeling so miserable because, I failed, I didn't get the A. I should have gotten 7 A's in matric. I only got 4 A's. Yeah, kind of sounds ridiculous when we talk about it like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, actually, because the way you are grown up in your childhood and growing age, that impacts your whole life, because to be in a good environment impacts your life and your thoughts as well. So getting rid of this, failure and success kind of thing, it's really very difficult for general people, and they're to right kind of group and community. So it's really important for us to take care of our child and how they are growing up.
Yeah, and create that ethos of pleasure rather than pain around, not succeeding first, second, third time around. And that it's okay. In fact, it's great. Biggest lessons that life gives us, our biggest teacher in life is failure, if you want to call it that. Absolutely.
And the solution you gave is really right, that we should, if we are having any goal, we should break it into different smaller pieces, and then we should go ahead. It's like, how will you have whole elephant? You'll have in piece and piece. Yeah. You can in one shot.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing is to bounce ideas off people. So you've attempted something that didn't work. talk to someone, obviously not someone who has this very strong sense of, oh my God, you failed kind of thing, but someone who's going to be supportive and encouraging, to bounce ideas of people who've gone through that journey. They have learned, they now have the experience and the knowledge. Bounce ideas off them. We use and support people, support each other in that manner. As, for example, coaches we do, we get together, we meet, and we talk about what worked, what didn't work, how do I get it to work better. We don't go about calling each other, oh my God, well, maybe coaching is not for you. You shouldn't be doing it, Chances are you're going to be a failure at it, whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
So we have been talking about failure and success in our life, and you have already put little light in your life as well regarding that. So my next question is how you have dealt with your failure.
Yeah, not easy at all. Unfortunately, it was painful. Yeah. And especially since I mentioned earlier on that I, from the one, and because of the manner in which I was raised, I was always fearful of failure. And because of the other thing we should also probably refer to is, we all have a particular dominant personality type, particular characteristics and traits that would either help us in dealing with failure or make it just more challenging. And I have traits that I'm still working on and continue working on. And one of them is to do things well, that chasing that illusion of perfection. So when you want things to work out perfectly well, there's no place for failure there. So you can imagine what happens when you fail, when you, in your head, and your characteristic trait is to do things perfectly well, and now it doesn't happen. So you fear failure to the extent that it holds you back. You don't go taking risks and challenges because of the fear of failure. So that holds you back, and that's what happened through a huge part of my life. And it became so uncomfortable, and to a point where I reached a point and I said, can't tolerate this anymore. I need help. So, trying self-help is one thing. And this is really important for people to understand. It can sometimes be challenging to deal with that, but recognize when you need help. And there are people out there who assist people in dealing with this. And that's what I did, got onto a journey of personal transformation. It was a long journey, not an easy one. And it's an ongoing journey, we never really get there. You just continue. Our growth never stops.
Right. It's really wonderful having you here talking about importance of failure, and so that we can actually learn how we can leverage our failure, and we can learn things, and we can grow and achieve our goals.
Be interesting to hear from others and present.
So right now, this forum is open for audience. If somebody wants to ask any question to our guest, most welcome. You can unmute yourself and ask your questions.
So before asking a question, I like to thank Minu and Maryam for a wonderful session. It was a session filled with wisdom, and I enjoyed every bit of it. I learned today that failure is nothing but going from one failure to another failure, and success is something that going in from one failure to another failure without losing the enthusiasm and confidence. So it's a great lessons learned, and I think that you have imparted great wisdom to all of us present in this session. Thank you very much, Maryam.
Thank you, Chintan, for your comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else want to ask any question?
Hi, Minu. Here is Jagat.
Yeah, hi, Jagat.
I learned lots of things from here. When I learned from today, failure is not a obstacle in a way of success. Failure is a part of success.
Yes.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you a lot for
Absolutely.
the valuable information.
Thank you so much for
Jagat.
being
Thank you, Jagat, for being here.
wonderful audience here. Anybody else want to ask or say something? Okay, so before we end up this session, I would like to ask you about your 2 books.
Oh, the books, yes. So the first book, Overcoming Shame, Blame and Pain, A Tale of Two Souls, it essentially tells the story of my life and the struggles, and I suppose you want to call them failures as well too. Particular focus on my relationships and how I struggle through that, and with some guidance on how to overcome that. And it also tells the story of a young man and he struggles with drug addiction, kind of to society which sees two very different people, but yet going through the same cycle of shame, being shamed, blaming, and the pain that comes with all of that. So that's the one book. The other book looks at the one on Unchained, Soaring on the Wings of Serenity, is about victim mode, when people assume victimhood, constantly feeling sorry for themselves and setting blame out on others. And I wrote that because of my own need of understanding better, you know, my own frustrations with people who are constantly whining and complaining. And I realized that there was something I was missing. I needed to understand better about what it is that drives that kind of behavior. And also with tips on people who live with people who are constantly assuming the role of victim, how to actually deal more empathically with them, to be a bit more compassionate, understanding of that kind of. So that's what the other book is about.
So victimhood, it is related to some other stuff, or it's related to like when we fail and we fail and fail and we feel that, okay, I'm failed. Like we are victim of society or circumstances and all. So
so, you know, part of the issue about failure is assuming responsibility. And the way we assume, that's what it also teaches us. The way we assume responsibility is, I did this, so now I will take on the responsibility of trying differently, doing things differently. And the problem with people when they're in victim mode, and almost all of us at some degree or the other, we tend to adopt that, you know, it's when we start turning away from responsibility and putting the blame out there, you are so much more likely to fail in your community. You can't achieve success in anything if you are constantly putting it out there and not assuming responsibility and looking within and understanding the process within that is keeping you from becoming successful. And you'll notice that as a pattern in that individual who takes on the role of victim, it will be an ongoing pattern, you know, one job to another, not succeeding at this, not succeeding, and then constantly blaming, you know, you're blaming your boss, you're blaming someone else, instead of just assuming responsibility and trying again and again and being clear on what it is that you want in life. So definitely a very clear link with that.
It's like we should feel that we are responsible, and it's not that we are responsible and we won't try, but we will try again and again to achieve whatever we want to.
Yeah.
Jagat, you has raised hand. You want to say something?
Hi, Minu. Actually, my still a little bit curious in my mind. I want to ask how to overcome fear of failure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, if one just looks at fear, first of all, I think we have to accept that fear is always there. It is there. it needs courage. And what is courage? Courage is doing what you need to do despite the fear. You know, we're all afraid. We're anxious. We don't want to do it. We think of things happening, and we think of failure, but we still go ahead and do it. And it's to understand where that fear may be rooted in something or the other. Sometimes it can be an experience in your past, events that happened in the past. You know, it's to realize that you can't have those experiences and events determine the future of your life. Is it part of a characteristic trait, like I explained mine, you know, that need to do things well, always wanting to be seen as being good and doing things perfectly well, whereas if there's a chance that I might not get this right, so I'm not going to do it because I am so afraid of failing, because if I fail, people will say, oh, so she's not as perfect and as good as she thought she was. So you've got to be aware of the internal dialogue that also goes in your head, you know, those kind of thoughts and beliefs that you have. And if necessary, seek help in identifying what that is, because sometimes they're so unconscious, we're not even aware of these thoughts and beliefs we hold that's holding us back. So yeah, there could be one of many reasons, and depending on what the underlying cause is or what's feeding that, one obviously has to address that. But fear, you know, is another thing. It's there. It's always there. There's always that bit of anxiety, that bit of fear about something or the other. Coming and talking to many, of course, there's that bit of, it's always a bit unsettling. But do it anyway, you know, because, so, you know, go ahead and just do it. The only way we get beyond that is in the doing. So, you know, if it's going to fail, great. It means I'll just do it better next time. And that's probably the real way to get. And try with little things first, you know, those tiny little things that you're afraid of doing. For example, you don't really like talking to strangers, but you haven't spoken to your neighbor and you're fearful of what would the neighbor think if I did. Just, hi, how are you? A little thing, just that little step towards doing what it is you're afraid of doing. And then you realize, oh, that wasn't so bad. Nothing happened to me when I did that. And then you're going to do it again.
Even your smile can help in that, doing that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that helps, Jagat, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, while talking to a stranger, if you have a little friendly smile on your face, that really helps, because other people will also feel comfortable while talking.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and then there's a lesson learned in that, because then you learn, oh, but I didn't die. Nothing happened to me when I did that.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's really, really wonderful and insightful talking to you. And we have learned and we have heard so many things, wonderful things that we can inculcate in our life as well. And our audience will also do that. So really, thank you so much, Maryam, for being here.
No, thank you. Thank you all. Thank
our
you.
host, sorry, guest. I'm the host, you are guest. So wonderful. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
Maybe in future on some other topic.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much, Mina. Thank you.
Thank you.